And welcome back to the Gridiron Address. We have some great post-draft coverage coming for you today. If you missed our show Thursday, a lot of these guys were on here. A big shout out to Aikman. I hate to put you on the spot again, but you were fantastic Thursday night. It was great having you on. Very happy you were able to come on this afternoon as well. And Cody, I think this is the first time I've had you on the show since you made the intro for me. So now I can actually thank you on the show.
Oh, all good.
I really appreciate that.
All good. I'm glad you're putting it to good use. And it still holds up. I was jamming to it right now, so I'm glad it's working.
And then obviously Jason and Chris, you two are mainstays on the show. Always happy to have you on. And let's just dive right into it. As just like a quick little primer for today's show, we're gonna talk about how we feel about how our team's drafted. I'll just kick it off. I'm really happy with what the Panthers did. I wasn't expecting Monroe Freeling to be there at 19. I thought like the best tackle available would be Ihana Shore or Caleb Lomu. So when a guy like Monroe Freeling falls to 19 for Carolina, I love that pick. I wanted Thieneman or Makai Lemon for a while, but Freeling makes a lot of sense with Ekwonu potentially missing the entire season. And yes, they signed Rasheed Walker, but I do think Monroe Freeling's probably going to start at left tackle, which is spectacular for Bryce Young. Freeling's a phenomenal pass protector. Shannon in the comments, appreciate you watching, Shannon. Bummed out I couldn't get you on. Jason, how are you feeling about the Giants draft?
I mean, I'm feeling pretty good. It was definitely an interesting draft. I was very curious to see Mr. Harbaugh in his first draft in the Giants building, how this was going to go. They hit it out of the park, man. Arvell Reese falling to us at that 5th pick, which was very surprising, getting that top rank linebacker there out of Ohio State, man. Pretty exciting. We were very shocked that he kind of fell that far, that nobody else picked him up yet, so it was a great pick, even though I kind of wanted Sonny, but this was a good pickup there. Of course, I love CC at the offensive tackle. Definitely need to protect Jackson Dart, so I knew that the offensive line was going to definitely be addressed this draft. And of course, Colton Hood falling to us here in that second round, man. I think that's a great pickup out of Tennessee. So excited about him. But I'm super pumped for Malachi Fields. I can't believe we got him in the 3rd round there out of Notre Dame, man. I think he's going to be a monster. You got him. You got Neighbors on the other side with Jackson Dart, just another weapon to have. So I definitely like it. And then overall, just I give them an A-. We'll see how they do going into the season here, but pretty excited for my New York Football Giants.
And Aikman, I'll throw it to you. I did not realize you were a Commanders fan, honestly. I think I missed that when Michael texted me, but I mean, they had Sonny Styles fall to them. I thought that was a spectacular pickup, but what's your opinion on how the Commanders drafted?
I think Sonny Styles was definitely the best. I mean, you couldn't ask for the board to fall any better if you were Washington. I do think there was heavy consideration, had the Chiefs not traded up for Mansour Delane, that he could have been our pick at 7. Chiefs traded up and got him, but I am ecstatic with Sonny Styles falling to 7. Overall, we didn't have a 2nd-round pick with the Laramie Tunsil trade last season. I'll gladly give up a 2nd-round pick to have Laramie Tunsil as my left tackle. We did get Antonio Williams out of Clemson in the 3rd round. Love that pickup there. I think he is going to be a guy that as the season goes on, he's going to carve out a role for himself in David Blau's offense. Then also, one of my personal favorite gets was Katron Allen in the 5th round out of Penn State. He's kind of the pro comp I've seen around for him is Tyler Algier. He doesn't fumble very much, carried the ball a ton in college at Penn State. Again, that's why he's like Tyler Algier. He doesn't really fumble the football. So if you'll give me that big back that's 6'1", 215, 16 pounds, doesn't fumble, you need that kind of running back in your offense every once in a while. And then I also love in the 6th round, we got Matt Golbin from Michigan State, one of the highest rated graded centers in college football from this past year. Great run blocker, did not give up a lot of pressure and pass block rates. He will compete with Nick Allegretti at center after we cut Tyler Biotish right when the offseason and new league year was about to start. Overall, I'm just really pleased with what Washington did. We didn't have a lot of draft picks. Again, the Laramie Tunsil trade took a few of those away from last season that was for this draft, but they didn't have a lot to work with. But what they worked with, I was pleased with the outcome.
And Jose in the comments, appreciate you watching. Cody, I'll throw it to you. Obviously, your Raiders had the number 1 overall pick, and we knew what they were doing from the start. But what are your thoughts on how they did with the rest of their picks?
I thought John Spytek in this one did a really good job, and the scouting department did a great job at finding hidden value, at least what they believe is going to enrich the franchise. Like, yeah, we can look at Mendoza, the number 1 pick. I think a lot of other teams that are quarterback needy, had they had the number 1 pick, he probably would have gone first. I'm not trying to make the argument that he is better than other number 1 picks, so let's just relax. But I will say, like what the Raiders did in the 2nd to the 5th and even parts of the 6th round, which is where I really believe the Raiders needed to find some hidden talent. Taking a chance on McCoy with that 4th round pick, which if he is healthy, which again, a lot of conflicting reports of the knee and all this stuff. And it's not necessarily the ACL is a worry. It's the degeneration of the knee, if it can hold up. But let's assume he stays healthy. That's a number 1 cornerback right there that they got for a 4th round value, which I think is huge. I think that the Crawford out of Auburn, the edge right there, is a great little pairing that he can have with Max Crosby and Leonard under him. And he's definitely a freak athlete. I love the Washington Jr. in the 4th round, who's our 2nd pick in the 4th round, to be that 1-2 combo with Genty, who, Clint Kubiak made it very apparent that he wanted 2 running backs. And he got a guy that's, I wouldn't say opposite of Genty, but bigger, a little bit runs in between the tackles, where Genty is more shifty, kind of goes around to the edges. Most of all, though, is going to be very instrumental when it comes to Mendoza, the screen game, or any other split back options that Kubiak likes to run. And I like one of my favorite picks was in the 5th round, where they got Masses, the cornerback out of California. Again, depth at that position that we desperately needed. And again, part of the draft, as we all understand, is it's fun. It's great to be excited for these new players that have come on your team. And I'll speak for my Raiders. What we need to do now, or the coaching staff needs to do, is bring these guys up, get them ready for pro style football, get them coached up, get them ready to play. Because I've seen several different drafts where a lot of Raider Nation fans are excited for what we drafted, but we don't have the coaching staff that develops them. And then they go off and they go hit splashes on other teams. So what I'm hoping for with a lot of this depth that we found in these later rounds is they stick around, they improve the team, because we had a great offseason when it came to free agency. Now we need to hit it out of the park with this draft, and that's on the coaching staff. And I'm happy with John Spytek at the moment, but I want to see what we look like come preseason and regular season.
And last but not least, Chris, your Pittsburgh Steelers had an interesting draft, but I mean, I like what they did. I'm personally a fan of it, but what are your thoughts on the Steelers draft class?
Yeah, I mean, overall, I think the hosts had a pretty solid draft. It's definitely addressed a lot of team needs. That's number 1 priority here. I mean, of course, Max Ianshore, a lot of people kind of viewed that as a consolation prize for not being able to get the superstar wide receiver Malachi Lemon. I beg to differ with that, because in the end, we still have Pittman Jr., DK Metcalf there, and that number 1 and number 2 spot. So addressing the offensive line is a priority. That was a big problem for the Steelers here in this past year, just being eaten alive by the defensive line. Aaron Rodgers is running for his life in a lot of those close losses that we had. So having that protection is really paramount. I'm a little bit confused by the Jeremy Bernard pick in the 2nd round, an undersized receiver who's dedicated to taking more passes behind the line of scrimmage, kind of more screen pass orientated receiver. I believe that this is the Kenneth Gainwell substitute. I think that's kind of what they were going for in that. And then a couple decent pickups later on. I mean, Dale and Everett, Jennings Dunker as well, to address the secondary, the offensive line, the huge issues. The Drew Aller pick, of course, a lot of people were kind of confused about that. with the injuries. The injury he had this past year was statistically not one of the better quarterbacks, especially toward the last year. His last year at Penn State did not do very well. But overall, a development project. I just kind of think that it's pointless because we already have Will Howard, who's already a development project there. So it's kind of like, for you readers out there, it's like you're starting a new book, but you haven't even finished the first 3 that are in front of you. So that's kind of how I viewed that pick as a good metaphor. But overall, the Steelers did make me happy. I'm going to grade it probably about a C+ to a B- somewhere in that ballpark. Again, would have been nice to have a true number 1 receiver again, but we already have 2 really solid receivers who are still, freak athletes in the primes of their career.
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, I think I might have liked Pittsburgh's draft class a little bit more than you. I think Drew Aller's worth the gamble because, I mean, if he can pan out, he has better plus physical traits than a Will Howard. I think Will Howard's probably more consistent thrower of the football, which is why I think he's going to win the starting job if Rodgers doesn't come back. But that is a topic for another time. We have to keep it rolling with our draft coverage. And moving on, Aikman, I'm going to throw this to you. What do you think the most surprising pick of the first round was?
Not so much surprising of the first round because I think we all just kind of thought it would happen, but at the back end of the first round, the fact that Ty Simpson went top 15, to me, I did not have the LA Rams at 13 taking Ty Simpson. I get it from the standpoint of to have the guy in waiting. If you can get 2 more years out of Matthew Stafford, but your Super Bowl window is right now. Ty Simpson does nothing to help you right now because if Ty Simpson sees the field in anything other than a preseason game or a meaningless Week 18 game this year, then that means chances are the LA Rams are out of the playoff picture. Stafford's gotten hurt. Everything's went off the rails. Just my opinion. I did not expect him to go top 15 whatsoever.
And I had that written down as well. I think that's probably going to be a pretty popular pick for the panel. Cody, I'll throw it to you next. What was your most surprising pick of the first round?
So ironically enough, so my co-host and I at West War Room Rivals, we also had a first round draft day watch party as well. And I kind of just said Ty Simpson as a joke. Didn't even think that was a realm of possibility because Mekhi Lemon was still there, and Sadiq. Like, you can make a better argument for those 2 with the Rams. I think my co-host Austin even mentioned like a tackle would probably be better to protect Stafford. And so I think ultimately, like, that was probably number 1 in terms of like biggest first round reach or the surprising pick I saw. I could even make an argument for our friend Michael here that maybe the Cowboys pick of Lawrence towards the back end of the first round was also a bit surprising considering the other kind of players maybe that would have been better fits for the Cowboys. But, not trying to throw shade at Michael or anything. But, I mean, for sure, Ty Simpson at 13, is he first round talent? You can probably make an argument. And I think Steelers might have gone with him towards the latter part of the round had he fallen there. But I think there's other offensive weapons for the Rams before Simpson. And that's my thoughts of it. But I would still say like Cowboys Lawrence is a bit of a reach for me, considering the amount of edge depth that they could have gotten at that pick, in my opinion.
And I don't disagree with you. That was the consensus reaction when we were watching, was like, oh. But yeah, I'm still laughing. During the watch along, Chris and I's friend Luke, he was having Wi-Fi problems, and every time he was getting really animated about a pick, it was just cutting in and out and in and out. Made it so much more fun. And then Michael was just like shell-shocked for the rest of the stream after the Cowboys traded with the Eagles. That was a whole lot of fun. Chris, I'll throw it to you next. Who was the most surprising pick in the first round, in your opinion?
Yeah, so I have 2 notes with that. This isn't necessarily a pick, but yeah, you literally just mentioned a point I was going to make about the Cowboys trading with the Eagles. I mean, is this a sign of a change in mentality of the Eagles, willing to trade back with a division rival? It's really weird. That was actually probably one of, if not the most surprising moves to me. But pick wise, actually, so this was one that I was really a fan of when we did the initial discussion. Like, I was really big on the Jets drafting Kenyon Sadiq, but now after having a couple days to think about it, I'm going to kind of correct myself here. I mean, I remembered, they drafted Mason Taylor last year in the second round. So at 6'3", 245 with only 11 collegiate touchdowns, like, is Sadiq now a blocking tight end? Mason Taylor going to be blocking tight end? Are they running like a 2 tight end system, kind of like the Ravens had been doing the past couple of years with Isaiah Likely and Mark Andrews? Like, what are the Jets kind of doing here? I mean, initially I said I liked it because the Jets notoriously have had really bad tight ends, like, for a very long time, at least for the past like 10, 15 years. Mm-hmm. But now with 2 younger end tight ends, rookie and sophomore year tight ends, kind of what are you doing here? I'm not saying necessarily it's a reach, but at 16, when you have so many other things, I mean, the Jets were really bad. Everything on the defensive side of the ball. Of course, they did not force a turnover, or not get an interception. Every single person on this panel has the same amount of interceptions as New York Jets had. So maybe addressing cornerbacks, maybe something like that. I just think going for a tight end when you already drafted one last year, maybe not the best idea. Not a bad pick. He's very good, but just kind of other team needs there. So I'll just shout that one.
And Jason, who is the most surprising pick from the first round?
Well, I'll jump into the consensus. Of course, Ty Simpson was a huge curiosity. I can see why they did it. The more I look at it now that we've had time to kind of absorb it, you got to figure the Rams are counting on the fact that they're not going to have a high draft pick next year and probably a little more quarterback heavy draft. So they figure they get their developmental quarterback now, get it out of the way. So this way next year's draft, they can focus on the O-line and some of the other things. But my biggest surprise was, Chris touched on it, some of these trades that we had where teams were trading up. And let's talk about the first one where the Chiefs traded up to get Mansour Delane from LSU. I think they could have got him where they were. Instead, they traded away some draft capital to move up to pick him. He's a good pick. He's top 15, top 20 player. But was he worth trading? So there was a lot of weird things going on. Of course, the Cowboys trade and some of the other trade ups that we saw. It's like, well, why would you give away even late round picks for a guy that's probably going to be right there in front of you? So I was very, very curious about what the Chiefs were doing when they picked Mansour. So just to trade up to get him when they knew they could have got him. I think they were picking at 9, and then they traded up to get him. So very curious about that.
And next up, Jason, I'll throw this one to you. Who's the biggest reach of the draft?
Well, I don't know if there's because it's the draft. These are rookies. These are kids. They're all reaches in some aspect. Of course, got to give a shout out to my man, the Raiders there with Cody McCoy. A big pickup, but they took a chance of a 101st pick. We'll see what happens with that knee. I think that's a little bit of a grab there, but I'm going with the 49ers. Was very shocked when they hit that. They had the first pick in the second round. You had all night to sleep on it. You had all night to think about this stuff, and then you got Dijon Scribbling, the wide receiver, good wide receiver, but you took him in front of Boston. You took him in front of Bernard. So, I mean, to me, I think that was a little bit of a reach. You had, all this time to think about it. It wasn't even like it had to be a quick pick. And you that was your wide receiver that you wanted. So I was very, very curious about that. First pick in the second round there for the 49ers. Was very kind of shocked that they went that route with him and how they graded him higher than some of the higher graded wide receivers that were in front of him.
And Chris, who, in your opinion, was the biggest reach in this draft?
I mean, obviously the number one answer will be Ty Simpson, but yeah, Caleb Banks too. I mean, it was kind of a reach. I mean, overall, especially for the Vikings team needs going for a defensive tackle that high up when 9 clearly needs some protection at the offensive line. So yeah, I would say Caleb Banks or the Ty Simpson. We've already beaten that into the ground, but Ty Simpson. I get why they did it, but there's a lot more quarterbacks next year. They just wanted the extra year to develop them. But because there's only one NFL ready quarterback in this draft, if you ask me, and that's Mendoza. So,
And Aikman, who is the biggest reach in your opinion?
It was tough. It was like a coin flip for me to figure out the biggest reach because two really stuck out to me, and it's two tight ends that were drafted way, way above where I think they should have been drafted, and that's Nate Borkercher from Texas A&M by the Jaguars, and then Marlon Klein with the Texans. The tight ends that were still on the board in the second round when these two guys were taken, you still had Max Clare, Justin Jolie, Oscar Delp, Eli Raridan. Like, I searched, and so many places did not have either one of those guys in their like top 150 rankings, much less to warrant the fact that they went top 60. Like, I just don't get it from that standpoint when you had a lot of other tight ends that I thought brought more to the table. Those two being taken so close together in the second round really shocked me.
Yeah, I am definitely higher than most on Max Clare. I think he's going to have a really solid career. I think he's a really well-balanced player. He's a good receiving threat. He's a good blocker. Cody, who's the most surprising pick for you this draft?
I think the most surprising pick, and there's several that we can do, or at least the reach of the draft. And I don't know necessarily if this falls under the reach category too much, but I think I was scratching my head when this team and the Arizona Cardinals selecting Carson Beck at top of the third round. And I get it. Like, I think he has some upside, sure, but third round pick, I think they're kind of hoping that they find a diamond in the rough. I feel like if they really wanted like a quarterback that has some sort of a future, I would have thought maybe that they find a way to get Ty Simpson from, get in front of the Rams. If that was the case, maybe Drew Aller, maybe you kind of go for that. But I just feel like the Cardinals, I don't know. I don't know what I feel about this kind of a pick, considering it just doesn't. I mean, it makes sense in the sense that they need a quarterback. You're not going to focus on Jacoby Brissett, but Carson Beck in the third round, I don't know. I feel like that was a bit of a reach. I probably would have done a little bit more offensive line work. So anyways, I think that was, to me, what the biggest reach was.
That was an Arch Manning pick. And they picked him because they want to get Arch Manning next year.
Yeah, I think so.
Thinks Carson Beck is nice, and I think
he's a nice backup quarterback. I think he's a nice backup quarterback, but I don't think he's going to turn your franchise around. You have Jeremiah Love that you got third overall, which I think that's not bad for a running back. I mean, my Raiders took Genty at 6. I get it. But if you're going to want a quarterback that you're trusting, I think that there was just better options that they could have done in the draft, or at least be more aggressive if they really wanted a guy that they want to put under center and trust, in my opinion.
I mean, at the third round, I think you're looking for guys who could potentially add value and expect to start down the line. And I think he's not going to be forced to start immediately, and he's going to be able to sit and learn for a couple years, which I've talked about on end on every show I've ever been on, that rookie quarterbacks need to sit for a year or two and learn the offense before they're thrust into a position where they have to start. And I think this isn't bad for Carson Beck. Arizona's going to have time to build up the offense around him. Maybe they do go a quarterback next year, but for me, it's worth a gamble in that third round, fourth round to go out on a wing, take a quarterback who might turn into something, because you don't always expect these like middle round guys to really be anything crazy. And I think if you're taking a swing on a position, it's good to take a swing on quarterback, because if you hit, then it pans out better than hitting on anything else. But moving on, let's talk about some of the biggest steals in the draft. We touched on it a bit earlier. I have to bring up Max Clare. I was really, really surprised that he was available at the 29th pick in the second round for the LA Rams. That was a spectacular pickup. And to talk about a bit of a first-round steal, talent-wise, for me, Caleb Downs was top 5. So him being at 11 for the Dallas Cowboys was phenomenal. I don't like giving the Cowboys much credit. Spent plenty of time giving them flack Thursday night, but this was a phenomenal pick. This was a no-brainer. Aikman, who are some of your biggest steals from the draft?
Well, like you, I had Caleb Downs to Dallas as a steal just because of the overall talent to get him outside the top 10 at 11. Now, I want to put I guess, an asterisk by this one, but it's because, and Cody's going to like this, but to get Jermon McCoy where you did in the 4th round, if this kid gets healthy, the 24 tape at Tennessee was top notch. The 24 tape is what got him to this position. If they can figure out the knee, whether that bone plug's got to be redone all over again. I mean, there's talk that if that bone plug has to be redone and things ain't right, it could end his career completely before he even has a chance to step on the field. But if this young man can get healthy and get on the field, you're talking about the Raiders getting a top 20 overall player in talent in the 4th round. It doesn't fall in your lap any better than that. I mean, at this point, when you get to the 4th round, especially in this draft, because so many people had stated the fact that NIL with so many kids going back to college, it had really weakened the 4th through the 7th round in this year's draft from where it could have been. So to get this kid where the Raiders got him, if they can get him healthy, it is by far and away could be the biggest steal of this draft class.
And without a doubt, and on that note, Cody, I'll throw it to you. Who are some of your biggest steals from the draft?
Ironically, I have 2 of them that I felt like did really good. And a lot of it is because the way that the board was falling between rounds 1 and 2, where you actually, as the round kept playing off, there was still so much quality in terms of defense still available through rounds 3 all the way to 6, in my opinion. I think Texans deserve a lot of credit. They got Ramsey out of USC, top of the 5th round, which a couple of mock drafts I had him falling in the 3rd round. So to get him at 5 with what he could do, and also Kilgore going to the Bills in the 5th round as well, I thought was huge for that defense and what he could potentially be for them at a 5th round spot. And again, some mock drafts I had seen, even on the Raiders side, had either Ramsey or Kilgore going and about 3rd or 4th round ish, which that's like a premium position on a lot of defenses to go safety. And I felt like those 2 teams got some good quality safeties that could make immediate impact on their team and be a force for those defenses. And that all they had to spend was a 5th round pick on him. I thought those 2 teams did a great job in that respect.
And Jason, who are some of the biggest steals from the draft? Obviously, a lot of players to talk about. I have another 6 guys who I can mention.
There was a bunch. I think the biggest one I thought of is on Thursday night. He was the guy I think we talked about more than anybody else because we kept mentioning his name, waiting on him to get drafted. That was Avion Terrell, the cornerback out of Clemson, who ended up falling to 48 to the Falcons, which a heck of a pickup because we had him pegged going in the 1st round. So for the Falcons to be able to pick him up, I think that was a heck of a steal. Like Caleb Proctor, the defensive tackle, going to the Cards, this 2025 Southland Conference Player of the Year, win at number 104. I think that was a heck of a pickup for him too. And then I got to shout out my Giants for getting Colton Hood at that 37th pick. I think a top pick there. A lot of people passed up on him, so I think he's going to be pretty special. So you never really know the steals of the draft until these guys hit the hit the field. So it'll be interesting to see and play this back a year from now and see who actually was the true steal of the draft. So it was pretty exciting.
Well, hopefully when we look back on it in a year, we look somewhat smart. I hope I can look back and be like, yeah, that was a good take, but probably not. Chris, who are some of the biggest steals from this draft?
Oh, yeah. I mean, there was a decent amount of them, but give me Emmanuel McNeil-Warren for the Cleveland Browns. I mean, that one, I was surprised how far he fell, especially at the safety position, going 58th overall in the 2nd round. But, 6'2", 202, safety. He was all 4 years at Toledo. He was versatile. He comes in experience too. Like I said, you don't get to see these guys, even if it's in the MAC, you don't see these guys playing 4 years in a row anymore. It's just not really that common. So you have a guy who's really NFL ready in a position that is honestly, you have to be really smart to play. I mean, you have to be experienced. You have to know how to read offenses, read receivers. And he comes in with that experience, and then he's going to be paired up with Grant Delpit too there in the secondary. That Cleveland Browns defense, it's getting better and better, especially the secondary was an issue. I mean, I almost feel like the AFC North, we're coming back to that traditional hard-hitting AFC North defense where you have, these kind of like Troy Polamalu, Adam Pac-Man Jones guys, kind of still around. And just a great draft for Cleveland overall. I mean, I had my college radio station on listening to the second round on the way to work. And one of the guys was a Browns fan. He was just he was really excited. He was cheering that they drafted him and he fell that far. So I think the Browns are going to see some improvement with McNeil Warren.
Without a doubt. And we haven't mentioned Dylan Thieneman, him being at 25 again. The top three safeties, all phenomenally talented. Could have seen all three of them go in the first round. I wouldn't have batted an eye. So Thieneman being there at 25 in the first round, and then McNeil Warren falling to 26 in the second round is crazy to me. And yes, Ohio State did have a lot of talent. And there's a comment earlier talking about Charles Demings, who was a really athletic cornerback from Stephen F. Austin, super productive. And that brings to mind another player, Aikman, you had also mentioned him, Ted Hurst from Georgia State. I feel like we have to talk about him. Really big body wide receiver. He moves well. Transferred from Valdosta State to Georgia State. Kept producing at the FBS level. I think he's going to be a really, really nice pickup for Tampa Bay. And yeah, I think that the NFC South is going to be competitive, and I'm excited to see what it looks like. Hopefully it will be better than 3 teams tied at 8 and 9 for the division lead, that was something else. But hey, Panthers are division champs last year, so can't really complain too much. And moving on to our last segment of the afternoon, winners and losers from the draft. Cody, I'll throw it to you first.
Oh man,
you can just name some winners, some losers.
So I think in terms of winners, and I don't want to say this to placate to NY, but I think the New York Giants had a really, really good draft. I feel like top to bottom, they did a pretty good job at addressing. I think I have some question marks for their coaching staff, but I think the quality of players in their draft, I think ultimately did really, really good. And as far as losers of it, there's 2 that come to mind. One, Cardinals and Dolphins. I feel like they made some good selections, but I feel like the later rounds, I'm curious of what their direction is. But those are the 2 that come to mind. So the 2 losers that come to mind would be the Dolphins and the Jets, or Dolphins and the Cardinals, in my opinion.
Yeah, that makes sense. I love Jeremiah Love. I think he's a great player.
Mm-hmm.
But man, Arizona just had more needs. You could have gone Francis Maui-Noah. That would have been good. You could have gone Arvell Reese. I thought they were going with Reese or Bailey, whichever one of them was left at 3. Threw me for a bit of a loop when I saw that. Chris, I'll throw it to you next. Who are some winners and losers?
I mean, I think the biggest winner here, and I kind of already briefly talked about them, were the Cleveland Browns. I mean, picking up McNeil Warren in the second, picking up Denzel Boston, a new wide receiver, 2, and Casey Concepcion, 2 wide receivers, and Spencer Fano there. Because, the big problem that the Browns had, and it's ironic, I'm a Steelers fan, and I've talked about them in 2 straight segments, is that Shedeur Sanders hangs on to the ball too long. I said this when he was in college. It's not going to work in the NFL as he hangs on to the ball too long. And adding offensive line, that's really the only way you can remedy that, is give him that extra couple quarters of a second. And he has a really good arm. So having 2 deep threat receivers, especially with the aging receiving core that Cleveland already has, Spencer Fano, a really good offensive lineman. And then on the other side of the ball, they bolstered that. And then losers, it's kind of hard. I mean, you kind of objectively have to say the Rams. I mean, just because the first round pick, they went with a quarterback when they have an established quarterback, even though, again, we've already talked about the logic with that. Denver comes to mind. I mean, more so, I feel like I'm just biased because there's some teams that didn't have a lot of picks, like Denver, Seattle, obviously won the Super Bowl. So there's a reason why. Kansas City, too, kind of not addressing as much team needs as we would think. Yeah, I mean, that's overall, there's a variety of losers here, but I think it was just a weird draft overall. That's kind of my overall thing. I know a lot of people, there's people saying, oh, it's the worst draft in years. And other people are saying, oh, well, you just don't know ball. It's actually the best draft in years, blah, blah, blah. Like, people are going back and forth. It was a weird draft. I'll meet everyone in the middle with that, or with that as kind of a beginning of closing argument.
Jose thinks it was a great draft overall, and I'd say it was solid. Like, we saw some weird trades, but there's still like a lot of really talented guys in those middle rounds. I don't think it's as bad as some people make it out to be. Chris, I'm kind of in the same boat as you, where it's solid. Like, and it's probably going to be one of those drafts where we end up with 3 all pros that got taken day 2. But who knows? Jason, I'll throw it to you. Who are your winners and losers from the 2026 NFL draft?
With the homer pick, by the way.
Yeah, of course I have to agree with my man, Mr. Cody Johnson, and talk about my New York Giants winning. So I do appreciate that. 2 picks in the top 10 is fantastic. But I'm piggybacking off of what Chris said, man. He stole my notes, so great minds think alike. Those Cleveland Browns, they had a heck of a draft, man. Those first 4 picks are going to be instant playmakers for this team. If they can get Sanders on the same page and get him a little more mature, this Browns team is going to be dangerous. When you can get Casey Concepcion and Denzel Boston, man, that is going to be one heck of a receiving core right there. So I was really, really impressed with the Browns did, getting Emmanuel McNeil-Warren and just stocking up. What a heck of a draft for them. I'm also going to give a shout out to my man Aaron. They got the A. I sent you the text last night, man. They got the A for their draft. So I mean, the Carolina Panthers having a fantastic draft. And as far as losers, to me, whoever traded up to get a player they didn't need to trade, to me, is a loser. So you talk about the Kansas City Chiefs, you talk about the Dallas Cowboys, trading when you didn't need to trade it all. Trading with your enemy. It just felt dirty. So not to just, blow up on the Cowboys because it's so easy to do. But just that pick, when that happened and that trade happened, you just instantly went, what? Why? So to me, you're getting rid of draft capital for no reason at all. So Chiefs and Cowboys, to me, big losers in this draft, just making moves for the sake of just making a move. So I don't know. It's the Jerry Jones move. Like, it's not the Cowboys if people aren't talking about the Cowboys. So sometimes we got to do dumb stuff to get them to talk about us. So those are my couple of losers. But man, we had a lot of big winners here. Again, I'm going with my Giants, those Browns, and those Panthers. I think really, really got some steals in this draft.
It would be the Cowboys that did a great job at getting Caleb Downs and then screwed it up by getting Lawrence right there at the bottom part of it, when they could have added another defensive piece or a tackle, and yet they go with an edge guy that probably they could have gotten in this 3rd round if they really just waited. Yeah. But hey, Jerry Jones, do your thing.
And Jason, you stole my notes. I had very limited time to make some notes, and the only one I had for winners and losers was the Cowboys as losers for trading with the Philadelphia Eagles and helping make them a better football team. That was all I had. I am being dead serious. And to end the show, Aikman, who are your winners and losers from this draft?
Well, I'm going to be a little bit like Jason, but get it out of the way. I do love what Washington did in this draft with the limited capital that we had. Again, I'm just over the moon about Katron Allen in the 5th round. I think he will carve out a role in this offense alongside Rashad White and Bill Krosky-Merritt. So that's one of those guys for you dynasty leaguers. I think as time goes on and you're building for the future years, you might want to look at that kid to eventually carve out a role. But again, to piggyback off of what's been said on here a couple times, because I had him down, I got to give him credit, and that's Dan Morgan and the Carolina Panthers. I really like what Dan Morgan and the Panthers did in this draft. Monroe Freeling is a monster athletic freak at left tackle, and what that dude can do. And the good thing about it is he doesn't necessarily have to step in and play right away with the signing of Rasheed Walker, and because we don't know what Ike Ekwonu's future off the patella really looks like, but it's good to have Monroe Freeling. And again, Taylor Moton's also getting longer in the tooth at right tackle. So you've kind of got some pieces there. I also really like the Panthers, the Lee Hunter thing. And I know, Aaron, you and I talked about this individually. That was one of those picks where at first glance you may look at it and say, why you might have scratched your head a little bit. Turn the tape on. That dude is big. He's a space eater. He's a gap filler. Like, you put that dude in there at nose or just a shade to the inside of the guard, man, good luck running. Good luck running on that. He is a beast right there. I think Chris Brazel in the third round is a great get. You know, sound the bell for Panther fans, because Xavier Legette, if Chris Basil comes on, you've got Jalen Coker, you know what you have in Tet McMillan. XL might not have much of a role very much longer in this Panthers offense. I think this is their way to kind of see him out the door if everything goes according to plan. And also Jackson Kuwatch at the 7th rounder. I'm going to give some shine to a 7th round linebacker out of Miami, Ohio, because this dude plays with his hair on fire. He 10 tackles for loss last year, also 5 sacks. He's going to come in, probably help on special teams to start with as he makes the jump to the NFL. But this dude's got serious potential. And then a loser that I have, they had a lot of picks, so they had a lot of chances to take stabs at it, but I felt like constantly reached way more than they should was the Jacksonville Jaguars. They took some picks. Yeah. You started with Borkircher at tight end. Again, you take a guy that high that's not even in most people's top 150, and you take him early to mid-second round. I know they have a new regime in Jacksonville this year. It almost felt like they were taking wet noodles and throwing them against a wall to see if something hopefully is going to stick at this point. I don't feel like you did Trevor Lawrence a lot of favors. The only pick I'm going to really look at for Jacksonville and say, you know what, that wasn't that bad, was the Emmanuel Pregnon pick, to get him later than I thought he would go. I mean, most people had him as the number 3 or number 4 ranked interior offensive lineman on their list, but I did not like what Jacksonville did. The AFC South is what it is as a division right now. It's just kind of there. You've got Houston's star-studded defense, and then everybody else, just my opinion. But overall, that's my one. I really want to shout out the Carolina Panthers here, and then Jacksonville's my big loser.
And yeah, I love all the love for the Panthers. It's spectacular. Also gotta mention Sam Hecht, center out of Kansas State. I think that was a really good pick as well. Obviously, they signed Luke Fortner in free agency, so Hecht will likely be a backup, but cannot complain about offensive line depth at all. That's why I love the Freeling pick so much. Moton's getting older. Kwanu's going to be out for an extended period of time, most likely. Great pick. Chris Brazel. We're not seeing Legette in Carolina much longer. They're not going to pick up his 5th-year option. He was already getting phased out towards the end of the season last year. We saw Jimmy Horn Jr. getting more involved in the offense, which I absolutely love. I want to see more of that from week 1 all year. I think he's a really special player. He's going to be a really nice wide receiver 4. Bit of change of pace there, but that will do it for this show, and that will do it for the draft coverage on Boom Broadcasting. It has been a spectacular draft season. Always a little bit sad to see it come to a close. Big shout out for everybody supporting the live coverage Thursday for the first round. That was a spectacular live stream. And big shout out to my panel for coming on this Sunday afternoon. Greatly appreciate y'all. Thank you everybody for watching, and hope